It's time to get out of pocket. Victor Wembanyama out for the year. That is breaking news that has come in this afternoon that Spurs sensational star Victor Wembanyama is going to miss the rest of the 2024-2025 NBA season, and it doesn't look good. Victor Wembanyama has discovered a blood clot in his shoulder, so this blood clot is going to make him miss the rest of the year, which has a lot of impacts, not only on this year, but potentially years to come. And I want to dive into that here in Out of Pocket when we are on the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel. Guys, I'm your host, Michael Davis, for Out of Pocket. And Victor Wembanyama, if you have been watching Three from Deep with Jason Colenso, who's been holding it down 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays at noon, you will know how much of an impact Victor Wembanyama has had this year. I mean, in his second year, he is just a tremendous, you can try to call him a unicorn, but I don't even think that gives you the idea that Victor Wembanyama has an impact on this Spurs squad. And he was a shoe-in for Defensive Player of the Year, no matter what anybody wants to say about, oh, they just want the narrative and they want Victor Wembanyama to get this award. No, he earned it. He had earned it. Led the league in blocks per game. And looking at his stats, the dude, 24 points per game, 3.8 blocks, led the league, 1.1 steals, 11 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 35% from three, 47.6% from the floor, over an 83% free throw shooter, and 46 games played, about 33 minutes a night. And this is a huge, huge blow. Now, this isn't going to be like an MVP caliber for sure. But seeing the impact he made on this Spurs team, especially defensively, as they kept going throughout the year, this is a blow. This is a huge blow. They're 23-29. They don't look like they're making the playoffs, especially after this news of Victor Wembanyama being shut down for the rest of the season. That is the unfortunate news. This team allowed about 114 points per game. The league low is 104.9. The league high was 122. So about middle of the pack between OKC and Washington. But Victor Wembanyama, when he's on the floor versus when he's off the floor, it's such a huge, huge difference. And the Spurs, if you remember when we did our NBA trade deadline special a couple of weeks ago, the Spurs had made excitement. The Spurs were ready to extend, and they are 23-29, leaving the All-Star break. But with the addition of De'Aaron Fox, with Chris Paul as a veteran there, with Harrison Barnes still there, this team looked like it was going to make some noise. Castle emerging as his young player. But now Victor Wembanyama's out. And this team looks entirely, completely different. You get De'Aaron Fox, who had Sabonis over in Sacramento, and now he's like, oh, wait, I get to play with Wemby. And now he's subjected to Jeremy Sochan. This is like a worst case scenario for the Spurs this year. Now, what does it mean for future years? Obviously, you have to worry about the health of Victor Wembanyama first and foremost. This is really young. This is really young for a player who just turned 21 years old. He was born on January 4th. Shout out to my January 4th people. Wrestle Kingdom Day. And my brother's birthday. But in all fairness, it is Wrestle Kingdom Day. But at 21 years old, you get a blood clot in your shoulder. And it makes you realize, A, tomorrow is not promised. But B, if he's finding this at 21 years old, this could impact one of the brightest futures in the NBA in modern era. It would. Now, LeBron, obviously, like, he was dubbed as the king, the chosen one, so on and so forth when he came into the NBA back in 2003. But when Victor Wembanyama came into the league, was drafted in 2023, everybody saw him and they're like, we are tanking for Wemby. We are tanking for Wemby. Teams were tanking for Wemby 2 years prior to him being eligible to be drafted. And rightfully so, because this is a tall man. This is a guy who's 7'3", who can handle the ball like a point guard and shoot it like Steph Curry. This is a guy who, and I love that Chris Collinsworth line, right? This is a guy, but this is truly somebody who can change an organization and get people excited. Was 17th in the entire NBA in points scored, 24.3, was 8th with 11 rebounds, and led the league again in blocks. And you can just see, like, yeah, there's a couple moments where he gets dunked on and people start clowning him and everything. But Victor Wembanyama, if he is playing like this just 2 years in the league, imagine what he's going to be playing like at 25, at 26, when he fully develops his game and he's seen it all. He's played against them all, and he's finally coming into his own as a player. That is scary. That is scary, imagining what Wembanyama would be like in his prime. But blood clot is no joke. Chris Bosh's career essentially ended due to blood clots. He tried to come back. He tried to, be CB1, but it was to no prevail. Chris Bosh, a very tall, lanky player, kind of like Victor Wembanyama without the ball handling skills. Just in terms of frame, Chris Bosh very similar to Victor Wembanyama, a little bit shorter, of course. But Chris Bosh was a great player. He was a great player. If you don't remember his time in Toronto, you should go back and look. Everybody remembers him from his Big Three era with LeBron and D Wade down in Miami. That's when he won a couple championships. But when LeBron left back for Cleveland and D Wade hopped around to Chicago and Cleveland because he wanted money, Chris Bosh stayed. And it looked like it was going to be Chris Bosh's team. Goran Dragic comes. But again, the blood clots really prevented us from seeing what Chris Bosh could have done at that stage in his career as the number one option down in Miami. And you just hope and pray that this isn't the same situation for Victor Wembanyama, who's been ruled out for the rest of the year due to blood clots found in his right shoulder. And that is devastating. That is devastating. And so long-term, you hope he can come back next year and years after, and this is a one-and-done kind of deal, and we get to see how great Victor Wembanyama can be. That's first. When it comes to the rest of this year, the San Antonio Spurs are 23-29. You have teams below you: Portland, Chicago, Philly, Brooklyn, Toronto, Charlotte, Utah, New Orleans, and Washington. You're looking at that NBA draft that's coming up. Who's coming out of the NBA draft this year? Oh, it's Cooper Flag. Now, would the Spurs be as bad to get Cooper Flag? Probably not. You got Dylan Harper in there. You got Ace Bailey from Rutgers. But you have to keep your eyes on a player like Con Knippel from Duke. The Spurs not only have their own selection, but they're having Atlanta's selection as well. So just imagine a world where the San Antonio Spurs, who are 23-29, won't win as many games without Victor Wembanyama. That is the reality. They were one of the worst teams in the NBA the year that Wemby did get drafted by the Spurs #1 overall. They have Atlanta's pick, who is not much better than San Antonio. Same amount of losses at 29. They They have won and played 3 extra games than San Antonio. Atlanta sits at 26 and 29. But imagine a world where Atlanta and San Antonio both get lottery picks. Both of those picks go to the San Antonio Spurs. And if Victor Wembanyama is able to come back, you could pair him up with De'Aaron Fox. Who knows if Chris Paul would come back, but you have a veteran in Harrison Barnes. And then you have 2 lottery picks that you can help build with in San Antonio. Now it goes without saying, if San Antonio does not luck out and win the number 1 overall pick, they're not going to get Cooper Flagg. Nobody is trading out of that number 1 pick. They are going to select Cooper Flagg because he is dominating Duke basketball right now. He's dominating ACC basketball. He's dominating the nation. But you're telling me if you're looking, you're like, ooh, we could try to get a Dylan Harper. We could try to get an Ace Bailey, a Knipple, a Maluach, Trey Johnson from Texas. I mean, these are guys who can help make an impact for San Antonio moving forward. Because as it is looking just in the playoff picture for this year, the San Antonio Spurs were on the come up. They could have very well gotten into the play-in, and that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like it was trending. They're about 6 games back from Minnesota from that 6th spot, but about 3.5 games back from Golden State and Sacramento, who just traded away De'Aaron Fox. That could have been something to watch. Dallas, who traded away Luka, but Anthony Davis is hurt now, and Dallas is falling apart at the seams. San Antonio could have snuck in there, but they weren't going to beat the Houston Rockets. They weren't going to beat the Denver Nuggets. Maybe Memphis, if you challenge them with De'Aaron Fox. You weren't going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'll be honest, I don't even know if they would beat the Los Angeles Lakers at this point. If you have LeBron and if you have Luka playing lights out basketball, I don't know if the Spurs would have beaten them. Because you can only play so much defense, and Wemby can't guard both LeBron and Luka Doncic. So for this year, it's not a big blow. The Spurs weren't going to win a title. Next year, it may set them up better in the draft, but your main concern and your main focus is Victor Wembanyama and his health after he was ruled out for the rest of the season due to a blood clot in his shoulder. And you look at who's going to be Defensive Player of the Year now, you got to look at Jaren Jackson from Memphis. The Grizzlies are 36 and 18. They've won 2/3 of their games, and Jaren Jackson's just a dude. 23 points per game. Yeah, that's not a defensive stat, but 6 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 1.6 blocks, can guard any position, can do anything you want him to do. And I feel like that's what separates Jaren Jackson from the rest of the pack, but it was going to be Victor Wembanyama. I'm just saying it was going to be Victor Wembanyama who would have won Defensive Player of the Year this year. But that is not the world we live in, unfortunately. And Victor Wembanyama has been ruled out for the rest of the NBA season due to a blood clot in his shoulder. It's very unfortunate. I was reading up on ESPN that he had already taken over 400 3-pointers and blocked 176 shots just this season. No player in NBA history, and I got this stat from ESPN, no player in NBA history ever finished a season with those numbers, and Wembanyama did it before the All-Star break. I mean, this is literally like just it's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. Just the player you're losing on the court, but the more pressing issue is he okay? And that's my concern. And that's my hope, is that Victor Wembanyama gets better. And so I had to hop on for Outta Pocket today to share this news. And Outta Pocket will be back tomorrow 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we can't wait to see you here back on the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel.
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. We had a ball making it. Thank you very much.